Welcome to a virtual tour of Tumwater's most iconic landmark, seen by many thousands of people over the years as they travel I-5. It's the old brick brewhouse tower of the Olympia Brewing Company. Your tour guide is Paul Knight, retired brewmaster of the Olympia Brewing Company, who worked for the brewery from 1961 to 1997. Paul has led many tours of the old brewery complex, and we're privileged to have him share his knowledge and experience with us on this virtual tour. The founder of the brewery was German-born Leopold Schmidt. But keep in mind that Leopold and his sons were not the only Schmidt family members involved. His younger brother Louis was also in at the beginning. Founded in 1896 by the Schmidt family, it began as the Capital Brewing Company.
The brewery started out in 1896 as Capital Brewing Company. And it operated as such until 1902 when Leopold decided that it would be better to change the name to Olympia Brewing Company.
Our famous brewhouse wasn't built until 1906, 4 years after the corporate name was changed to Olympia Brewing Company, and the slogan, "It's the Water," was adopted.
Leopold was in a barbershop in downtown Olympia and talking to the barber, and the barber's telling him about these artesian springs out in Tumwater. So he had to go taste the water, and immediately thought it would be good for brewing. This was pure and clean as it came out of the ground, and that greatly increased the adaptability of that water to brewing because it required no treatment at all.
Old photos show that there was a gazebo built near the well.
Yeah, the gazebo was built later, I think about 1910. But it was over one of the wells, and it had a small containment tank for collecting some of the water. And it was mainly a place for visitors to lounge and take pictures and so forth.
The river water was never used for brewing. That was used to generate electricity.
The individual electric motor was an innovation at that time. And it was made possible by the fact that the lower falls was generating electricity just a few hundred yards away.
Before we move on, didn't the streetcar rails run through here?
The streetcar tracks extended all the way down from Boston Street and down the hill, around the corner, to the Old Brewhouse. And even with stops at the packaging department to pick up or unload materials.
Using a special flat car, they could transport loaded kegs from the plant up the hill and down to the docks at Olympia for shipment. It was a pretty steep grade here, and it must have taken a lot of power to bring a full load to the top.
And there's stories about when a load of beer was going back up the hill that all the lights in Tumwater would dim.
I've heard you say that the brewery was always in a building program. Why was that?
Every year, sales would almost double. In some cases, they did double from one year to another. So from day one, the site was under continual construction and remodeling and reconstruction. I've seen one picture of a keg house under construction where they were using the space inside the walls to store empty kegs while the building was being built around them.
This brick tower building was rather advanced for its time. Paul, tell us a little bit about that and how the building worked overall.
The way the old brewhouse was built, it was built as a gravity brewhouse. It was called a gravity flow system. And once at the top of the building, it would flow back down toward the bottom through different processes by the use of gravity.
As we turn our attention to this impressive interior of the brewhouse, Paul talks about what we're seeing.
The 350 barrel kettle, in this case, would have been 14 feet in diameter, but the height of it would have been like 18 feet. This room was partitioned off, and it had been lined with ceramic tile. In fact, many of the ceramic tiles are still in place. Beer is a very spoilable item like milk. And the purpose of the ceramic tile was to keep the room clean. The 350 barrel kettle, that required 15,000 pounds of dry material for each brew. Once it was finished beer, it was put into either kegs or bottles.
People are curious about whether the employees were allowed to drink beer while on the job. Can you comment on that?
Yeah, during your work period at the brewery, beer was available for anyone that wanted it. This was true before you went to work, during the time you were working, for break time, lunch period, and a beer after work. There was a stipulation that went along with that. You better not have too much. And with my experience at the brewery, it was almost unheard of to know of an employee that abused the privilege.
Another common brewing question among visitors is how many kinds or brands of brews were made here?
They had two brands, Olympia Pale Lager, and then there was Olympia Bock. And the Bock was a darker, heavier beer with different hopping profile. They actually used imported hops for the Bock beer. The customer knew he was getting a good quality product each time.
The brewery operation was completely shut down by 1916 due to Prohibition, right at the peak of the brewery's success. After an attempt at retooling the plant to produce fruit juice and related products, the complex was sold for other uses by various businesses. In the early 1960s, the post-Prohibition modern brewery, located upstream from the older site, was running short on storage facilities. The Olympia Beer management decided to repurchase the old brewery complex for that purpose. The Schmidt family sold their stock in the brewery in 1983 to Pabst. Pabst sold to Miller in 1999. A South African brewing company purchased Miller and shut down the Tumwater plant in 2003. That's when the last whistle was blown. We all appreciate the knowledge and passion for brewery history that Paul Knight has shared with us in this special virtual tour. His volunteer work in our archives and leading tours has been invaluable. Like us, he is eager for the Brewhouse Tower building to be rehabilitated so it can once again be open to the public. After all, the Brewhouse Tower has become an iconic landmark for Tumwater, inspiring an architectural design theme for many of our modern governmental and commercial buildings. At the time of this production, the Brewhouse Tower building has been donated to the City of Tumwater, who is beginning the process of sealing up the building for preservation and raising the funds to renovate this wonderful structure. After more than 100 years, we're excited about the possibilities for restoration of this historically significant site and are inspired with the visions for the future based on our rich history. For more information, visit SaveTheOldBrewhouse.org.